Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to this webinar on a pertinent topic, HR Analytics 2.0, Augmenting Intelligence, Insights and Intuition in HR, brought to you by ETHR World and Oracle. People analytics has evolved considerably from when it was first used in organizations in the mid-1900s. There has been a clear transition from prescriptive analytics to predictive analytics, with which organizations can now be better prepared to face the complexity of the operational environment and be proactive rather than reactive. For example, sophisticated data science, interactive data analytics, and machine learning are all integral parts of people analytics today. It is no secret that data makes workers more insightful. Therefore, it is used in every function in the organization today, from sales to HR. Today, HR is using people analytics to aid soft skill decision-making in recruitment, skilling, engagement, and performance, and many more. Not only are they able to solve critical employee-centric issues, but also play a vital role in achieving sustainable business success. To that point, I would like to raise the curtain and introduce you to the eminent speakers of this session, who will share their experiences and learnings on people analytics. Please join me in welcoming Pallab Mukherjee, CPO, Equitas Small Finance Bank; Swaminathan R, CPO, WNS Global; Shakun Khanna, Leader of Human Capital Management Strategy and Transformation for Asia Pacific, Oracle. Welcome, gentlemen, to this roundtable discussion. Before we start, I'd also like to welcome the viewers. Viewers, please use this opportunity to share your questions with the speakers. You can share your questions, comments, your thoughts with the speakers using the chat tab. At the end of this session, we would really like you to walk away with great takeaways. So your interaction with the speakers is equally important. All of you, welcome to the show once again. I'd like to start with Pallab. Pallab, how has the journey been so far with respect to generating data for people analytics? So far, where have you come and how much work is in progress?
Hey, thanks, Pooja, for inviting me to this panel, and thank you, the fellow panelists as well. So I think one of the first steps in data analytics is getting the data in place, and it does take time, effort, understanding of the data, how and a few hits and misses before you kind of probably get it cleaned up. Yes, gathering of data, particularly in HR, sometimes is an issue. We probably have not been as rigorous in capturing employee data compared to customer data. And then not only capturing the data, but capturing a data in a format or a table which is intelligible to the machine. That's also important. For example, a Bachelor of Arts is very different from a BA compared to a B.A. for the machine. So it will read it as three different qualifications, whereas actually it's the same thing, right? So it's as basic as that, and it does take time for people to understand that and then get the data in place. Then there are legacies. For example, people who have joined, say, 7-8 years ago, before we actually had a HR SS in place. For them, organizations worked with total years, and things are not captured in as clean a manner as it is there. So these are just the building blocks, and we need to kind of be mindful of it when implementing an HR MS. So that's the first step that you need to take. In terms of how we progressed, we have progressed a lot as a bank. We have progressed quite a bit, largely on the customer side. So if you go to our mobile banking app, for example, we have a facial recognition a feature by which you can log in, etc. Um, can the employee do it? The answer is no, not as yet. But yeah, we would love to reach that stage. We are somewhere in between where we are doing some kind of a lot of it is still, I would say, reactive, a little bit of predictive analytics in terms of recruitment and L&D. But yeah, so that's where we are. It's a journey. It's a long journey, and we would probably reach there in some time, hopefully. And I don't think we'll ever reach there, because even what we reach probably would have changed by that time.
Yeah. I agree, Pallav, when you say that we are not collecting that much data in HR as we're collecting in sales, because it's very evident that, every time you have a call with a customer service, you get a call back asking, how was your experience? But every time, people, the touch points where people come to HR, is everything getting recorded, or, how much experience is kind of recorded at every point? I think that day is a little far. Swami, are we years behind in mining data for better decision making in HR? What are some of the challenges HR leaders face in collecting, storing, and analyzing data?
It depends on first, Pooja and the team. Thanks for having me in this conference. Very insightful topic. I mean, that's a very speculative question, right? I mean, are we years behind the thing? I don't think we are years behind. I think most organizations have come to a point, where they are able to, pay every people on time. So probably something should be working. So and when you go about, I always say to my team, the best used ERP system in any company is the leave management system, where people can apply for leave, right? And those things also work, right? So I think most organizations, because of some new players who've gotten ERP on the clouds, and who are able to provide services for small and medium size, segment, MSME to be particular. I think we are there yet. So I don't think we are far behind in terms of data. Look, and you need to understand the origin of our, of our community, right? We started off probably more as a control function than as a development function, right? So all the control data will always be there with the function, right? Let it be payroll, let it be inputs to pay. Look, factories used to run very complex variable pay. If anybody goes look at the old pay structure of India, which would have a Shimla Act where a variable DNS allowance would be, connected. I think these were very, very complex things, and we solved for it, right? I mean, the need suddenly came to progress from a control function to a nourishing function, if I may call, right? And for nourishing, you really need to know people. So currently, the whole COVID pandemic was bowled out of the blue, right? If I have to call you, I cannot call generically to say, like you get a bank call, right? I mean, hey Pooja, we approved you some 10,000 rupees of loan. We can't do a generic comment. I have to ask, your Pooja, you're working with EP, you're blah blah, and specific that. So it requires hyper personalization. Look, are we ready for that? Probably we are not, right? And we have steps to catch up. I'm just taking a cue from what Pallav said, right? I mean, you have to be agile, right? I mean, look, we are talking about predictive. Predictive, in my view, is over, right? We are going to being current, right? Can system be intelligent enough to deliver the service what an employee might want to engage with, where you seriously cannot put human manpower behind it, because there is far and few when it comes to the talent base to do that. So I mean, a mixed response. Control side, I think we are all set. Look, you will not find any kind of errors in any of our ecosystem. From a nourishing side, Pallav blended into L&D, or talent acquisition, we're getting there. In a dollar pie, talent acquisition gets the lion's share of it, because that's revenue, at least for companies like us. So we really over invest on that side. Again, to take a cue, it's still the sales side. I mean, you're engaging an employee to take on board, so you probably want the best experience. But I think we've come a very far way, right? And data challenges is Look, the first challenge is not even data. The first challenge is definition, right? What do you mean by attrition? Right? I mean, there are 7 definitions for attrition, right? I mean, there is a rolling definition, there is a non-rolling definition, there is a quarter definition. Look, I mean, the job of the HR is to collectively sit down and agree on data definition, right? What do you mean when you say a number, right? If it is 24%, does 24% mean the same to everybody, right? Now, once you even simplistically agree on definitions, the rest will fall in place. It's like building a house, right? You have to put your foundation, right? Foundation is data. Then data, you have to have data adequacy. That means, as Pallav said, you have all the data. Then you move to data accuracy, and that means the data that you have are accurate enough. And then you go data definitions, right? I mean, these 3 building blocks are a must when you have to build, whether you want to call it as a digital journey or an analytic journey or any journey, right? These 3, 4 core foundations should be laid up, right? And those are available on the control side, right? You will have payroll data, you will have incentive data, you will have overtime data, you will have shift allowance data. All those are that. So I think getting these into perspective, my advice is basically getting the definitions right is pretty long step. It's kind of a bit boring. So mostly the talented people might not want to engage in it, but without that, you can't go further. I'll just take a pause here and then probably we'll discuss as we further move.
Very interesting points. And I totally agree when you said that, definition is very important. One is that you have data in hand, and then how do you define it and what kind of outcome do you look for? With that, I'll go to Shakun. Shakun, there is a lot of curiosity, in the market, in the community with respect to data analytics. So I would request you to demystify that for us. And with that, the question is, how have you helped enterprises to generate terabyte of data at multiple points and use that data effectively for people decisions?
Sure. And Pooja, what Swami just mentioned, I think is the fundamental bedrock of this transformation that is happening. As the expectations from HR function moved from control and compliance to nurturing now, I think the utility of data has evolved. Way back when we designed HR systems, there were multiple fields to capture the data. But the common question would be, why do we even need this? What will we do? Because nobody could see what eventually will be done, because the platforms, technology, and the systems were not available at that point in time. So might as well people made that optional. And that's the reason when Pallav says that historically, if we look at the legacy employees, it's very difficult to find the data. And I think that that whole problem emerges from there. The good news is that when on the e-commerce side, on the customer side, when the power of big data and analytics was unleashed and people could see the real impact of that on business, suddenly we realized that there is a big play of analytics in HR, and that's where this whole journey started. And that's where I spent a decade in so-called HR analytics, which was then actually the science of polling. In the name of HR analytics, we would do a survey once in a while, and I used to run Gallup at that point in time. Once in a year, you will come up with heaps of data, and perhaps that was the most comprehensive and big data set an organization generated. But today, if you look at it, data is the new fuel, and it's like a new fuel that you have found, and the possibilities are endless. Technology is developing and applications are coming, and therefore a lot of creativity is getting unveiled. So the first and foremost thing that we have done is to solve this problem of absence of data and data sitting in silos, because every company has multiple systems. Swami talked about leave application, which could be part of the ERP. Then you have a payroll application. Then you have a performance management application. Then you have a learning application. They are all generating data, and then they are all, keeping that data in a silo. So what we have done is that for the first time, we have created one unified platform where entire data sits and is accessible. So that's point number one. The second biggest roadblock of HR analytics was the fact that data had to be generated and uploaded. The fundamental flaw here is that data has to be generated, collated, and uploaded. We don't have to do that. So therefore, now we don't generate any data. We capture transactions, which evolve into data automatically, because they are not in separate systems. So I'm just interacting with the system. It is intuitively picking up data. So if I log into the system, there is a data point. How many times am I logging into the system? Can it then go to predict certain things? So for example, Swami talked about the definition of attrition. Of course, there are multiple definitions of attrition, but we found that there are very interesting insights that you could unveil if you are not generating, but capturing data at the point of transaction. So for example, we found out, and this is a little dated now, so it may not be that aha an example, but we found out that people have a tendency of accessing certain documents in their HR systems, specifically their increment letters and their pay slips, either when they are applying for a loan or when they are wanting to attrite from the organization. And that can be built into an algorithm, and that's something which artificial intelligence and machine learning is doing. So being able to predict something as simple as an attrition intention of a person, looking at certain behavior patterns because of his or her interaction with the system, to actually talking about much more evolved insights that data can do. The art of possible is unlimited today. And as I said earlier, it's the new fuel that has been discovered. And today we have discovered an unlimited supply of fuel and a way to extract it in zero cost and zero effort. And now the real thing will get unveiled as we go forward.
Very interesting, Shakun. Palak, Shakun shared an example as to, how when employees are accessing particular documents, it kind of, be a insight towards, let's say, who are planning to exit the organization, and give you an opportunity to act in time and kind of, do something to make them stay back. My next question to you.
And Pooja, I'm sorry to interrupt before
No
reaction that I want to clarify here. It is just one of the indicator on the algorithm that is actually capturing maybe hundreds and thousands.
Yeah.
Earlier it was not getting captured. Today it is getting captured. Next phase would be to build a hypothesis, prove it, and then only arrive at a conclusion. So I just want to clarify that it's not a causation. It's just a sense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You need AI to actually be able to predict and create an algorithm. Palak, the next question to you is, what critical employee related issues would you like to solve with data and AI?
See, as per me, HR has only two responsibilities. One is ensuring that the organization always has the knowledge, skill, aptitude that is required by it in the near-term future. Okay. And the second is the cultural. HR is the custodian of culture. So therefore, anything to deal with how the culture is at a particular sub-function, at a sub-department, sub-region. That's the two critical items that I think HR needs to manage. The rest of the work that we do with respect to various processes, whether it's recruitment, onboarding, compensation, PMS, is all aligned to one or the other. The people analytics piece of it will also cater to any of these two items, right? So now, where do we see this, right? One is that right from recruitment. What do we do in recruitment? You do recruitment. You try and find the first thing as a candidate job fit, right? Whether through you're doing it through some kind of testing mechanism, or you compare his answers to some standard answers which your high performers would have given, and the like, right? So then the second part is that how are you onboarding him, right? So if he has applied to you, does he need to type in his name again when he's onboarding with you, right? So these are, or is the HRMS good enough to take his resume and fill in as much data points as we speak about. So these are the starting points, right? So in terms of how do we go about predicting from here? Shafan mentioned about whether or not the person is accessing a payslip, whether or not person is coming late to office, whether or not person is taking excessive leaves. So these would and So, and I would not say that, we have come up with a perfect answer as yet. At least we have not as an organization, but these are, small data points that we are trying to look at, whether, suppose I give him an option to take a learning course, and, he says that no, we let it be. That's a big indicator as per me, that, if somebody is being given an opportunity to learn something and the person is saying, no, then it's probably, to me, is a very high indicator. So these are some of the things that we are working on. Let's see how it goes as we go forward. Models are being built. Models, as Shakun and Swami also mentioned, need to be one curated. Then you'll have to have a pilot batch, then a control batch, etc., etc. So what has succeeded? For example, as I said, if people are accessing pay slips at the end of, towards the end of March, just before, suppose this time it's going to be December, you'll find a lot of people accessing pay slips, and that too of the previous year. Why? Because the taxation is going to be there. So, but is that so I need to understand a lot more about it than just the activity to this thing. In terms of surveys, I think, or the biggest thing is that the time lag between an employee mood and my and what am I going to do about it, right? So as Shakun mentioned, years ago, we would have one Gallup survey possibly every 1 year, or maybe even once in 2 years or whatever. But today, that mood gets captured probably in every interaction that the person is having with his supervisor or with his HR counterpart, and therefore my ability to work around that becomes a lot easier. So these are some of the things that we are doing. Yeah, it's always a journey, as I said, never the end of it.
Yeah, I'll just take an audience question at this point. So Abhijit is asking, traditionally, HR has been powered by the reliable judgments of practitioners who are entrusted with an array of actions like hiring, promotion, culture, leadership, and so on. What is the current state of HR analytics? Is it replacing or assisting practitioners in areas given the crunching of data volume is far higher than the scope of stakeholders?
My first reaction would be that, human decisioning would always be there. Anywhere where there is a decision to be taken. Yes, the scorecard, even look at customer credit, right? So most of it, say 90% or 95% of your credit applications will go through a scorecard. The scorecard says yes or no, it goes through, right? But there is that always going to be the 3-4% even on customer credit, right? It will come to that internal person, and the external customer probably will have to go through. And this, I'm talking about retail. The SME and the other markets are very different. So there you need probably human interface today in all decisions, though you'll have the same plethora of data available to you. As we go into more and more data, then the decision comes with HR, because it becomes very complex, right? To my mind, anything which is repetitive, like leave approval need not come. It goes in a system. I don't need to fill in anything. It's a routine thing. If he or she has leave and he wants 1 day of sick leave, please, what value add am I going to do, by okaying it or not okaying it, right? So those things will definitely get replaced. Anything which is transactional, for example, you have your, typically a confirmation or anything like that. So that will typically get automated, right? And you don't need a person who will actually confirm or not confirm, etc. So your volumes, etc., is available on the system. So what, again, there's not much value add for 95% of the cases, right? So it's only in those areas that HR comes in. The good part is that, what does it do to HR, right? So and I think someone mentioned that, we moved from a control function to a nurturing function. And the reason why we have been able to move largely is because of that, I don't need to spend as much time as I used to spend earlier looking at, what has happened is to, it being automated. So that's a big advantage / change as I see it.
Very interesting. Swami, last time we met, you spoke about using people analytics in areas which are scalable and non-linear. Can you elaborate more on this?
Yeah, sure. I just want to take Pallab just simplified all our existence by telling two parts, right? Anything on skill and people, you're fine, right? I think that's wholesomely true. I saw some of the questions on the question box, right? The first thing first we must understand is, look, unfortunately, the entire HR analytics so far has been built for leadership consumption, right? So if you take a design thinking as a problem, you've not put the employee at the center, right? So you've not solved for an employee need, you solved for leadership reporting need, right? And that's where all these conundrums come into play, right? So, and as Pallab rightly pointed out, right? It's about what kind of problems you want to solve. Right? What are you solving for? I'll give you a very simple example, right? The famous, every organization currently with the way the market is going, exit interview, right? I mean, I'll have one very senior HR, leader of mine comes, I want to do survey for probably 2,000 people who are leaving, right? And prepare something, right? Now, technically, you have to sit back and think that if you have a 6-member team and you want to talk qualitatively to 1 hour to 2,000 people, you want to spend 2,000 hours, right? In a 6-member team has only 1,000 hours of productive time every year. That means, are you telling me you want to spend their entire year of productivity in talking to 2,000 people? That's not feasible, right? So you need to have, that's where the first method of sampling comes into play, right? Now, first thing I want all the HR practitioners to understand is ask a question, what are you solving for, right? What answer are you seeking, right? And as Shakun also said, that should be a hypothesis. Then the play happens, right? Now, what is scale, right? Let's say, for example, if I have to, we staff like 20,000 people a year. So when we are staffing 20,000 people a year, that translates roughly to 2,000 people a month. So 2,000 people a month, a conversion at 10% means I need to have processed 200,000 resumes. Now, 200,000 resumes, I don't have a team that can talk to everybody. So you technically bring automation, right? Now don't get confused. There's no analytics in it. You bring automation to ensure that I'm able to process through more people. It's like going to Tirupati, right? They have some system that they ensure that you get the darshan and get out. So we are doing automation, right? Now there are certain things, as Pallab said, nobody reads the resume nowadays. So we said, why ask for resumes, right? Ask for data points, right? Keyword searches can be automated. So there is an automation journey, right? Now, after the automation journey, what we want to provide is a customer experience. That means, can somebody walk into a WNS door of selection and get out within 4 hours, right? Earlier it was physical, now it's virtual, right? Very hard to engage at that point, right? Now there you need a lot of intelligence. You need a lot of data. You need segmentation. You need something else, right? So if you're able to break down your scalability, and then what is AI, right? And again, people have to be very careful with the use of term AI, right? Somebody asked a question, what is the right software for 200 people, right? I know Shakun is there, but I'll simply say do with Excel. It's enough. Don't overcomplicate, right? I mean, for 200 people, you don't need anything. You possibly can talk to, if you talk to 5 people a day, you're talking to your entire population in a month. That is no analytics that can, be more effective than you knowing what your people want, right? When you're trying to solve for scale, and when you're doing artificial intelligence presupposes that you need to have intelligence, right? You can't build an AI without being intelligent, right? And that means you technically know how to solve, and you're solving for it. You are telling the machine that, hey, you know what, I've solved it in this method. If there are more variables coming that way, you might want to solve that way, right? Now, and that has to happen only at large scale, right? So in our area of operation, our recruitment, talent acquisition is scale, right? We want to cover a lot of people on learning, right? My transaction queries on policies are at scale, like 55,000 people. If they choose to ask 5 queries a day, I don't have manpower on this side to respond to that. Then I will use probably I won't use AI. I will use machine learning and social design to respond to them better, right? So you need to know use cases for this, which requires a lot of reading, right? Which requires a lot of reading and understanding where it is applied, and possibly apply that in a micro set and expand. And always you need to understand the most questions that we are struggling is as a function, we've never put employee at the center of the design problem. We put leadership queries resolution as the center of the problem. So we are pretty adept in it, right? And we want to solve the employee experience problem by answering the leadership. Completely opposite conundrum, which will never get solved, right? Now, I think you have to choose what you want to do. Probably the solutions will.
Very interesting, Swami. Shakun, my next question is for you. Most organizations are there currently in the digital journeys. So, they are using more of cloud and digitalization for, market penetration and also satisfying consumers in unknown ways. How important is HR analytics and automation of HR to lay the foundation, the silicon foundation for organization to become digitalized in their businesses? So is there a connection? And if it is, then how do you look at it?
I think it's not just about the connection. It's an integral part of the house that you're building. Swami earlier talked about it's like a blueprint. So you can't have a house where one room is like futuristic and digital and state of the art, and the other one is like old age HR types. So that doesn't work. So I think, and the other piece is that you cannot expect to give a superior digital experience to a customer when the employees themselves are not getting it, right? So Vineet Nair came up with this great adage of employee first, customer second. And I think in digital also, it has to be like that. And truth be told, that's how it is. So if you look at the HR digitization journey, wherever the highest pain is there, digital adoption is also high, right? So starting with recruitment, for example, recruitment by and large is much more ahead of the curve in terms of digital adoption than others, so it's an imperative today. And I do believe, and pandemic has really accelerated that, HR digitization is equally important, because we are talking about an employee experience. We are not, and I love what Swami said, it is now not an automation to solve the leadership problem. It is now digitization to give the right kind of experience to the employees. And that changes completely. And what is most beautiful here is that this digital experience has automation and analytics married. They are infused together, so it cannot be one or the other. The big challenge, however, is that this has to be done under a unified approach. You cannot solve the digital problem or digitization experience problem, and you cannot unleash the power of data and analytics unless and until it is one consolidated whole. Not only within HR, but actually to unleash the real power, it has to be infused with the ERP systems, the marketing system, and just about any system. So that's what I would say.
Very interesting, very valid points, Shakun. We've got a wonderful audience today. I'll just take one audience question now. This is from Priyanka Kumar. She's asking, how can people analytics be used in small businesses other than the HRMS, leave and performance management? So I will just add another part to this question is that what would your advice be for organizations that are starting their analytics or automation journey now? So where should they start from, and what should be the baby steps that they must take?
Take a stab at it. Probably, I think Shakun can step in. Look, again, I somehow want all of us to go away from this use of this term called people analytics, right? I mean, you technically have to solve a business problem. What are you solving for, right? Are you solving to solve your talent acquisition? Are you solving to ensure your pay is right? Are you solving your talent is well developed? right? When you ask the right questions, everything will fall in place. I think most of us have lost our way. Probably Pallab and me made a lot of mistakes earlier in life because we went after trying to get visualization experience. We wanted to have a lot more of visualization to help understand something which we already knew, right? Because we come from old school. We said we have a decision point. We wanted to make the data support the decision or not support, right? Now, my advice to somebody who's starting the journey is solve business problems, right? And that means you'll be very clear about what data you want. And I completely agree with Shagun that somebody like any ERPs now gives you a platform. At least you should have people curse about systems of records, but without systems of records, you can't do anything, right? You need to have some systems of record, right? Then there are a lot of jargons thrown around, but for Priyanka, I will say, if you are having talent acquisition as an issue, just focus on that. Then you pick up the data, what is needed for that, right? And then you can really bolt on and build point solutions for what you're solving for business. That will increase the usage. The bigger problem with analytics is, 90% of the people don't know how to use the reports you're generating, right? And ultimately, there'll be one, Anand or Mike in one corner who will prepare one Excel presentation and send across, right? And that will overtake everything that exists, right? So I think if you want to solve for that, my advice is that, the expert is Shagun, who's advising a lot of people on many things. I know. Over to you, man.
Any point from you, Shakun, on this?
No, I totally agree with Swami that it has to be a holistic approach, so to say. And the other thing I would want to add is that, like any other technology application, there is always a difference between the art of possible and what can be practically implemented. It's like the electric vehicles. If you go to the Tesla R&D facility, they might say that the world has already changed. But on ground, we know that it'll be a few years when that really happens, right? And I think when it comes to the digitization that's happening, possibility and use cases are immense. But what we need to do is we need to build the foundation first. We need to take baby steps there. And some of the baby steps are actually where you can solve problems very quickly. And a couple of problems that are being solved are the problems that are emerging newly. So for example, what AI and analytics can really do in mental health and well-being is a quick start. You can implement it without really worrying about legacy. What it can do in performance management and 9box, it'll be a little while because as I said, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So in the journeys, organizations should look at what is it I can take off on without a lot of legacy, and a new problem comes in, you solve it. The skills taxonomy creation, for example, every organization is talking about the skill shift. I think AI applications are beautifully suited to solve that problem for the organizations because there is no baggage, there is no precedence, right? So my recommendation there would be pick up the art of possible on problems that are new and where your legacy and baggage is the lowest. And that's where you can really have at least error-free, outcomes of AI. The bigger problem of legacy things is that suddenly human judgment knows, oh, this is wrong data, that's not there. Nobody says that it's because of garbage in, garbage out, but they question the technology, and one should not fall in that trap.
Yeah, sorry, just one small item from my side. We will go through this journey, and please do not give up on this journey. It's something that we have, at least I can say for myself, we have gone, faltered, fallen, reports have been trashed, all things have happened. But please continue on the journey, and you'll reach a very good place. That's the assurance.
It's a very important takeaway for everybody who's present in this audience. Pallab, taking a cue from what Shakun just said, that skill shift. Every organization is talking about skill shift. So my next question to you is, how do you see jobs evolving within HR on account of automation? It would be great if you share some of the best practices with respect to using AI, digital automation, analytics, data to skill, reskill, and upskill your workforce.
I think someone asked earlier also that, what's happening with HR jobs. And my answer remains consistent that look, HR operations, pure HR operations numbers, that's what will shrink. The employee engagement piece, the actual, people taking meeting person, whether physical, virtual, all that will continue. The cultural piece, because you would observe today that every organization, every successful organization talks a lot on culture and how it has built a culture which kind of is conducive to its business model. So those are items that I would request every HR person to be very mindful about and work around it. So those are things from a pure HR standpoint. Will an HR person need to know sophisticated languages? Probably some of them would. You'll need some kind of data scientist, for want of a better word. I know someone will score more. That HR people are not data scientists, but some kind of data science, someone who knows a little bit of R, Python, SQL, some stuff like that. It will be it's a good skill to have in HR. Does everyone need it? Probably no, but having that knowledge probably helps a little bit today. So that's there on the HR side. On the workforce side, I think what has started to happen is that we are all have this career ladder / whatever training architecture, or by whatever name we call it. We have that in some form in all organizations. Now the catch with how does data / AI analytics help us in is that it probably personalizes your learning experiences a lot. So suppose if that you're a personal banker, you've completed 3 years and now you're up for either a branch manager role or something. So then the kind of learnings that you need to have, because you have a certain job / therefore skill set. The gap in your skill set would be slightly different from say a relationship manager who's a pure play push product kind of job. So that gets customized. And again, fortunately today language barriers have started breaking down. So therefore, people who are conversant in a particular language, they get their inputs in some particular order, etc., etc. So that's something that we have been able to do in the larger businesses. So that has been quite successful, in terms of how do I personalize the learning experiences for people, and therefore take it forward to the career progression stage and things related to that. Employee referrals, etc., another area that people we have dabbled in NDP, but with moderate amount of success. That where does the source of recruitment, like for example, is it role specific, is it region specific, etc., etc. So we managed to do some work around that, and therefore offered roles internally to a certain segment of people and the like. Yeah, we have met with some success, not great, but yeah. So those are a couple of areas that we can talk about where how skill sets get mapped through either AI or digital to
Interesting.
on a career progression. Yeah.
I'll just take a very interesting audience question. This question is from Abhijit. And Abhijit is asking that tackling bias has been a challenge since AI was invented. So what is the state of downsizing bias with the help of AI? Who would like to take a shot?
Data would probably kind of, reduce bias to my understanding, because, the more data you have and more things happen on an automated basis, therefore, that the bias probably reduces to my mind.
And if I may add there, there are two aspects to it. Is your engine faulty or is the fuel faulty? So when you look at biases, I think the early stage biases in AI largely came either because of the data issues, which Pallav had talked about, and also because of what Swami mentioned earlier around common definitions and taxonomy, right? That's a very important piece. And it's not just about HR analytics, any kind of analytics, if you look at it, unless and until there is common language and taxonomy, it's not going to happen. What is interesting is that while data analytics and AI is improving, natural language processing has also significantly improved. So one of the significant development in machine learning is the fact that natural language processing abilities are now much more better, and therefore the biases, the heuristics have recently gone down. What is interesting though, and I think a while ago we were talking about new skill sets and new roles that are emerging in HR. Cognizant last year published a very interesting report where they are also saying that one of the new HR roles that is emerging is Chief Human Bias Officer, and then a Chief Data Integrity Officer, right? So the interesting part is that biases will always remain in intelligence, whether it is natural human intelligence or human created artificial intelligence. And I think we'll have to deal with that as we go along.
So just to step in, right? I mean, look, ultimately what we need to understand as HR professional, right? What are your two core jobs, right? You're the talent activist in the company and you're the paradox manager, right? And everything else, like Pallav said, what you exist, what Pallav said and what you do, right? Look, a machine can learn in terms of biases. I completely agree that, the famous Volvo interview, that came like a couple of years back, gave a nuance into how the new virtual interviewing process will be there, right? But again, as Shagun said, right, what are you fueling into the system is what it will do, right? At the end of the day, you can have a system which is non-biased, but if you have a culture that brings in biases, the system can't do anything much, right? So it's very, very important that, look, do you have a culture in your company that can appreciate data to predict, and do you trust it, right? Now, if that is not the case, don't go into this journey, right? Then you have to evolve the culture to accept data, right? Do people understand reports, and are they taking, because look, analytics requires a lot of work on the managerial side to enable them to use it. Look, otherwise, because all of us had most of our reporting in some shape or form even 10 years back, right? The whole journey is how do you make that useful? How do you make your managers use that? And from understanding what went wrong to understanding about what can be used for future. So let's say, for example, 8th of every month, if I don't have 220,000 resumes, I know I'm not going to beat a supply. That's going to happen 2 months later. Look, my operating leaders are so keen to review recruitment, right? I only tell them, guys, what you're reviewing now is a work that got done 2 months back, right? So no point reviewing recruitment now, right? That's why we are all called HR professionals who are reviewing ahead, right? Because there is also this job where everybody thinks they can do this job also, right? So you have to also tell them that why we are doing certain things in certain fashion. So my take is that build a culture that the organization can assimilate data-based decision, right? That's a huge change, right? Once you enable that, then the toys you need to do it, always guys like Shakun and others will have a lot of toys, right? Now you can use those toys later, right? But first build the culture where you're using a report to have a discussion. You're having data to build a calm discussion, right? I mean, that's my, if there are a lot of practitioners, you need a lot more culture change to enable the culture of data sciences and decision making than a system that can enable it, right? System follows, right? The culture of, eats everything for lunch, breakfast, dinner, right? So I think that's where I just want to urge our participants to focus.
Very true, Swami. Shakun, since you mentioned that we will very soon have data integrity officer, I have a question from the audience to that point. Saurabh is asking, for global organizations, What's your take on data privacy challenge that comes in the wake of implementing universal frameworks, given every country or region may have different laws around it, and how do you solve for it?
Yeah, and I think again, I go back to the same thing. You can't solve this problem in silos. On this particular, I'll give you an example. As people are coming back to work, this whole aspect of managing vaccination status and all that stuff is a very big important topic. So what we have done is we've created something what we call as, it's another toy Swami mentioned earlier. So Swami, I'm bragging about the latest toy that we created in the factory. So here is the thing, we created a vaccine passport, which is a bot-based application embedded within the Oracle HCM suite. So now one day you decide offices are opening. So my bot asked me, hey, Shakun, offices are opening. Do you want to come in? I say, yes, I want to come in. Do you want to tell us about your vaccination status? Yes or no? Or, are you vaccinated? Yes. Are you vaccinated? No. Or I don't want to tell. Now, these are 3 data points that have got generated there and then. Then comes again, the law of the land is built in there, right? So maybe in India that is allowed, in some other country that is not allowed. For capturing vaccination status, certain countries mandate that you must capture the brand of the vaccine used. And in other countries, this is almost illegal to ask which brand you're using, So the artificial intelligence system will already know that. So here is the beauty of it, the system, because it is one consolidated system, it will know which entity you belong to, what is your nationality, what has been your choice on data privacy. And now you are saying that I want to do that. Therefore, which question is right for you to ask, which is not. So what it is happening is it's creating that whole thing at the back end and then be able to generate that. And that gives a lot of insights to start with, and B, also manageability also. So for example, depending upon your company's policy around vaccination, you can then see who are the people who can work together in a particular shift, for example, or maybe in a particular floor offering physical proximity and so on and so forth. So that's the huge thing. So these rules and regulations are getting more complicated by the day. So it will be very soon humanly just impossible. Even today, it's not possible, but with software also, it has to be very high-end AI-based softwares that can keep pace with it.
Interesting. Swami, you mentioned you can't build AI without intelligence. To that point, what would your advice be to HR leaders, to L&D leaders, and to other business leaders in organizations? How should they go about preparing talent to, skill to use more data, to sharpen the skills? What would your advice be?
So, again, pretty counterintuitive. I always believe we have to go solve a talent problem, right? For which you need to use data. So it's like telling that, look, I have made, pulao and biryani and everything. Now, what do you want to have lunch, dinner is your choice, right? It doesn't work, right? The problem with the whole thing is that the premise what you're solving for does not exist, but you have lots of data and a lot of visualization, right? That's a whole lot of visualization that's been laid on to us, right? Now, let's say you have a 300 people center, you have like a 400 people shop or a 500 people shop, and most HR business partners, even in large organizations, don't manage size and scale more than this, right? Now, technically for you, what do you want? You need technology to have one-to-many interaction. As Shakun said, you need some polling devices to understand what are the views of employees, right? You need something to understand what could be the learning plan, but ultimately the talent strategy is the core, right? Now, for the talent strategy, if you don't have any information, you seek for that information. Putting the talent transformation at the core is very, very important, right? So if you have 500 people, you have to solve for that, right? Then you build your data, then you build everything around it, then you have the entire logic that can get laid out, okay? Now, once you lay out, you're solving that problem, you know the trend with which you solve the problem. Typically, talent acquisition, your ratio of selection is higher from people who are coming from, and you should need to code it to say expand to that region. Let's say they are coming from northwestern frontier, so on and so forth, right? So that's basically what is intelligence and what you need to do, right? And you expand that, is where it helps, right? So rather than going and trying to solve the entire ocean, where you will say, I'm going to have a talent acquisition strategy which is broad-based and build one data lake. You don't build a data lake for 500 people. You take an Excel sheet and you do it, right? And for that, you have different countries. Then you have a unified system like Oracle that probably can solve it for you. So that's my simple advice, right? Solve a problem, then seek the data you need to solve the problem, right? Rather than getting all the data and trying to figure out what problem do I need to solve, because that might not be useful. That's a very simple submission.
Interesting. There's just time for one last question. Shakun, this question is for you. What's the future of enterprise AI from the point of view of employee journey? And also, if you can throw some light on, democratization of HR, which is also a rising trend with respect to, data analytics and AI in HR.
I think AI and free access to data and information is democratizing just about everything. Any HR person who belongs to the era that it started with, and Swami mentioned the control era, might as well can take a voluntary retirement and enjoy his or her life now. That is my recommendation, because that's not going to work. The compliance part, AI will take care of it, right? The mundane task, AI will take care of it. Machine learning will take care of it. Bots will take care of it. There is no need of control because the workforce today needs agility and autonomy. What is important is ability to nurture. And in order to have that ability, you need insights. Those insights beyond human intuition will come from data and analytics. So I think that's there. In terms of AI driving employee experience, I think not just employee experience. If you look at human experience as a whole, whether you are a citizen, whether you are a buyer, whether you are a social friend, whether you are a consumer of any product or an employee, every experience, every human experience is now getting augmented through AI. And we will see more and more of it coming in HR, and it's already coming. I think the way you look at learning, for example, or onboarding in certain organizations is remarkably different. And as we go along, it'll become more and more pervasive. I mean, we can't run away from AI. The only thing is that AI will never win over human stupidity, so no matter how intelligent or robust systems we build, it will be human ingenuity which will always rule. And if humans still try and still make silly decisions, they will of course continue to rule any AI.
Sure. One key takeaway you would like to leave the audience with? Swami, we'll go with you, and then Palak, and then we'll close this session.
My take is that try and solve business problems, and then if it needs analytics, and data, then take that. But the function exists to solve business problems. That's my simple suggestion.
Yeah, my take is, as Swami said, one, look at solutions, and two, remember it's a journey. Please continue on it, and the more you get into it, the more will be asked out of you, and the more asked out of you, the better insights you will have. It's a wonderful experience, a wonderful learning.
I would conclude by saying definitely people analytics will help to develop an employee-centric culture and personalize experiences such as learning, performance, rewards, and more. It will free HR to play a strategic business role and empower people to enable and enhance their performances and outcome. It is a reality that different organizations are at different points in the automation curve. However, it is only about a year or two before every HR is fully automated HR function. Thank you so much for joining us today. Viewers, I hope you have found this, this session very insightful, and it has helped to stimulate your thinking on this topic, and you're walking away with great takeaways. Thank you, Swami, Shakun, and Pallab for joining us today for this session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Swami. Thank you, Pallab.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks.